"Dear father, I beg you to consent to my marriage. I love Victor Napoleon, and I dream of being his wife." Clementine begged her father, King Leopold II of Belgium. But the pompous king was adamantly opposed to this union. He did not care that his not the most attractive daughter was already 30 years old, and other applicants for her hand was not observed. The unhappy couple in love had to wait another 8 years until Leopold died. Only then were they able to marry. But the union of these mature people became truly happy. Clementine Albertine was born in 1872 in Brussels. Her father was King Leopold II of Belgium, and her mother Austrian Archduchess Maria Henriette. The girl was the youngest child in the family. Her birth was a real disappointment for her father, as she became his third daughter. Leopold's only son died at the age of 10, so the king waited with great hope for the birth of an heir, but he had another daughter. Relations between the girl's parents were cold and saturated with constant disagreements. Clementine's mother was a woman with an unstable emotional state. She cared little for the concerns of her children. The princess found warm support from her sister Stephanie, with whom she developed a strong relationship. Stephanie devoted much time to Clementine and, in a sense, replaced her mother. Clementine became a child whom no one loved, and her childhood was marred by loneliness. This period became especially bleak after her older sisters married and she was left alone in her palace. "I can't tell you how much I envy those children who know what a mother's love is," from Clementine's letter to her sister Stephanie 1998. Clementine received a good home education. The princess was especially fond of music and literature. She enjoyed playing the piano and horseback riding. The princess was not considered a beauty, but she had a kind, lively and amorous character. Princess was tall and slender. At court she was often called Big Clementine. Back in 1888, the princess met Prince Victor Napoleon, who arrived in Brussels. The prince was the grandnephew of the great Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte and was one of the contenders for the French throne. Young, handsome and educated, he attracted Clementine's attention. However, their mutual sympathy did not lead to further relations. The girl's first love was her cousin and heir to the Belgian throne, Prince Baudouin. This marriage wanted to arrange King Leopold, who dreamed of marrying his nephew to his youngest daughter. But, alas, Baudouin did not respond to the reverent feelings of Clementine and then unexpectedly died of pneumonia. The young princess long experienced his death. When the girl was 23 years old, her mother left the Belgian court and settled in Ostend. Therefore, the duties of the First Lady of the kingdom now performed Clementine. Years later, in 1896, there was still a contender for Clementine's hand. He became Crown Prince of Bavaria Ruprecht. But the prince did not like Clementine. He was a real soldier, so she refused the dynastic marriage. However, Ruprecht was not too upset and soon married a German duchess. Years passed, and Clementine was still unmarried. When the princess turned 30 years old, she met Victor Napoleon again, and feelings flared up between them. After realizing that it was not just an infatuation, the couple decided to get married. The prince asked the king for the hand of his daughter and received a firm refusal. The fact that Leopold II could not tolerate representatives of the Bonaparte dynasty. In addition, he feared a negative reaction to this marriage from the Third French Republic and deterioration of relations between the countries. The couple secretly got engaged, but they did not dare to marry without the king's consent. Calm and reserved, Victor Napoleon completely charmed Clementine and took a firm place in her heart. And as the princess did not beg her father to agree to her marriage, the king stood firmly on his own. Not only that, he told his daughter that if she dared to marry without his permission, he would disinherit her. Clementine and her father had a terrible quarrel in the palace. In addition, the Belgian press got involved, which felt it had the right to interfere in Clementine's private life. The newspapers published articles that it is unfit Belgian princess to become the wife of the head of the Imperial House of Bonaparte, as well as they were hinted at a long relationship between the prince and another woman. Such a man is not worthy of the hand of the princess. Of course, all these years Victor Napoleon did not lead a life of a real hermit. And although officially the prince was not married, he had a mistress, ballerina Marie Bio, and 2 illegitimate children from her. After unusual harassment in the press and conflict with her father, Clementine became frightened and decided to retreat for 8 years. While the prince's kin urged him to end his wait for Clementine and enter into a dynastic union, he never married, preferring to remain unmarried. As you can imagine, the relationship between father and daughter became very strained. For the most part, the princess was always sad. Also, Leopold forbade his daughter to write to her sisters, and Clementine had to do it secretly. Both of Clementine's older sisters had by then separated from their husbands, with whom they had dynastic alliances, and were trying to arrange their lives with other men. In addition, Leopold, not allowing his daughter to marry, himself quietly arranged his happiness with a 16-year-old Frenchwoman Blanche Delacroix. The girl was from the commoners and younger than the king for 49 years. This connection caused a real scandal. But all this did not embarrass Leopold, who made the young mistress a baroness and gave her money and estates. Their connection lasted for 9 years, and they had 2 children. A few days before his death, Leopold formalized his marriage to Blanche. This union was subsequently declared null and void. By that time, relations between the king and his youngest daughter had deteriorated so much that he even forbade her to appear at the palace. In the last months of his life, the king was constantly angry at all his legitimate daughters, intending to disinherit them. But everything comes to an end, and the king's life came to an end. Leopold II died in 1909 at the age of 74. And on the throne of Belgium ascended his nephew Albert I. It was the good cousin of Clementine and gave consent to her marriage to Victor Napoleon. The joy of the couple was no limit. Especially jubilant Clementine, who no longer believed in the possibility of arranging his personal life. And finally, in the fall of 1910, the lovers were married in Italy. The bride at that time was 38 years old, and her fiancé 48 years old. But they were happy that they were still able to unite their destinies after so many years of waiting. After the wedding, they settled down in Brussels. When Clementine became the wife of the prince, she was surprised by the cramped and modest abode of her spouse. Victor Napoleon had to enlarge his dwelling and make renovations. Then, in 1912, the couple purchased Château Ronchen, which became their permanent residence. As it is not surprising, but this marriage is quite formed. Their harmonious relationship pleasantly surprised others. After the wedding, Clementine wrote enthusiastic letters to her sister about her spouse. My real happiness is provided by my good husband, gentle, adoring, affectionate, loving, intelligent, connoisseur of people and things. He is beautiful, this Prince Napoleon is my love, I adore him. During the day I spend most of my time looking for things I like, and at night they are delightful, and I never thought they could be so good. From Clementine's letters to her sister Stephanie in marriage, the princess blossomed. No one could have imagined that the couple would have children. But 2 years after the wedding, Clementine had a daughter Maria Clotilde, and 2 more years later a son Louis Bonaparte. When the First World War broke out, the couple was forced to leave Belgium and flee to Great Britain. There, Clementine worked for the Red Cross and helped Belgian refugees. In 1918, Clementine and her husband returned to Brussels. These were the most joyful years for them, as the princess wrote later. Fate measured them 16 years of happiness. Victor Napoleon died in 1926 from a stroke at the age of 63 years. The death of her beloved husband was a real loss for the princess. Clementine outlived her husband by 29 years. She devoted herself to raising her children, communicated a lot with her sister Stephanie, and also traveled. In 1937, the princess moved with her children to France. Subsequently, the couple's children married and left numerous offspring. Clementine became the grandmother of 14 grandchildren, whom she was eager to see. The princess was highly respected in both Belgium and France. She lived a long life and died in the spring of 1955 in Nice. Clementine was 82 years old.